Hello, everyone. This is Antonio, and welcome to our podcast. Now, first, as we get started here, just figure I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am a termite inspector here in Southern California, and because termite and pest control companies are in the essential business category, I have been working. As required, I do keep a physical distance of 6 feet or more when I interact with anyone, whether that's customers or my coworkers there in the office. And I also do wear a cloth face mask, which my employer did provide. And I believe about a month ago or so, it was recommended. I know the CDC eventually recommended wearing a cloth face mask, anything. And I think a week or two ago, it was made a requirement. So in LA County, at least. And I also do have a respirator and chemical resistant gloves as part of my job. So that's just an extra layer of protection for me. But that's a little bit about me. And next, I'd like to present my co host, Sonjia, who will tell us a little bit about herself. Sonjia, take it away.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Sonia. I am a massage therapist and I dabble a little bit with herbal medicine. I live locally here in the LA area, and my job keeps me between Santa Monica and West Hollywood area. So I'm a little bit all over the place usually. Um, I am definitely not able to work at the moment since I am required to touch people for my profession. Wonderful downtime. I have started to focus on a lot of creative project goals that I have had, um, which brings me to co-hosting a podcast with a stranger.
Gosh, she's right. We're total strangers. Um, and we decided to do this. And of course, anyone listening to this podcast isn't aware, but it seems like the hardest part was getting logged on.
Right. Yeah, that did take a little bit of time. That's okay.
Yes.
We got it. We got it working. We're recording.
Yes, we did. Now, this is your first podcast ever?
Yes. No
Okay.
experience, no training, just going for it.
Yes. But I think you mentioned that maybe you've done some YouTube videos or you're thinking of doing YouTube videos.
So I have for a while thought about creating some type of YouTube channel, and
Yeah.
I've been thinking about, just the content and what to do. And my best friend, she's studying in Santa Monica College right now for broadcasting, and her and I have always talked about
Ah,
starting a podcast.
right.
However, she's an Aquarian, and so she goes off into the world and then does all this other stuff, which is
All
great
right.
and beautiful, and she's learning a lot. However, um, I still, like since I haven't had any training or anything, but I've been interested. So that's where I started looking on Craigslist, since I have a lot of downtime. And then I saw your post, and I was like, this is a wonderful opportunity to get some experience and just play around and see what happens.
Yeah, I think the universe was sending us both a message.
Yes, yes, because that's actually like one of my little meditative mantras was, or like when I was asking the universe out there, the universal forces, I was, asking for a partner just because, I guess by myself I'm a little shy, and I just thought for me to ramble on by myself about whatever, I don't know, but if you have like someone to kind of feed off of and have a conversation, it kind of makes it more lively and fun, because at least from what I've listened
Hmm.
to from podcasts, it makes it more fun to have and just like different energy.
No, I agree with that because I did do I uploaded a podcast first. It was like 35, 40 minutes, and and I definitely listened to it, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm just rambling," because it is challenging. It's just you, and you don't have someone else to just have a conversation with, and so that's why I posted that Craigslist ad, which I was asking. I think it was podcaster and crime wanted.
Yes, yes.
Um,
It was great.
and I well, and I knew it would be iffy because, of course, it's there's no money involved. We're not getting paid to do this. There's no sponsor, and there's no budget. So we're doing this, on the on the cheap, as best we can.
Yes.
Um, so I'm glad it worked out that we're collaborating and that we're kicking off our inaugural podcast.
Yes, me too. Very excited. That's, I think, like you
Yes.
said, it was meant to be. So,
Yeah, just crazy timing.
yes.
Um, so let's segue here. Let me ask you, um, where were you? Because of course, this isn't just Southern California and LA, it's the world that's being affected by this pandemic here of COVID-19. Um, but where were you when you heard that LA County would lock down all non-essential businesses? And like, what went through your head when you first heard that?
Well, I think it was that I literally the weekend before the announcement went out, I was in New Orleans. It was my friend's birthday, and so we
Mm.
were having a good old time listening to some jazz and eating crawfish, in New Orleans, thinking
Yeah.
this is crazy, hearing what is going on in China and everything, and then Italy, and we're
Right.
just like, wow, that's really crazy. And even a little bit of a uh, to go backwards even a little bit, even more in time, right before we left, I was talking to a coworker and she's like, I'm just working, like she's just really working to save up because I don't know what's going to happen. And I was like, yeah, whatever, we're fine. That stuff never comes here.
I
Whatever.
thought the same thing. Yep, you're exactly
Because
right.
how many
Yep.
times have they said, China's come down with some bird flu or something like that? And I'm like,
Right, right.
whatever. I don't think so. And then so then when that actually happened, I was like, oh, oops, never would have thought. But
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Blissful ignorance for me. Yep.
yeah, right? Because, we're America. That stuff doesn't happen here.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, and I was actually with the same friend that I had gone to New Orleans with, and she has a puppy. And there's the Palisades Park that's right there in Santa Monica that overlooks
Right.
the ocean and is beautiful. And we do a lot of sunset walks there. And so I think that's when we actually she read the announcement that it was actually starting to shut down everything. And we're like, this
Yeah.
is really crazy, and then just so I'm on call at a couple luxury hotels in Beverly Hills, and so I wasn't really getting called in, and they're like, it's
Mm.
really slow, and people were starting to kind of freak out as far as some of the massage therapists, and like, I don't want to work. But I'm like, I'll work, I'll make some money. They don't want to work, I'll work, whatever.
Right, right,
Just extra clean, wash your hands. And they're
right.
like, well, nobody's coming in. And so then I started to
Mm.
panic. So I did have some
Right,
panic because I was like, okay, so how am I going to pay rent? Like,
right.
I would say the first couple days is when I started really, not knowing what was going to, because at that point, no one's calling, no one wants
Right.
massages. And we were starting to get emails, so I work at some hotels, spas here in Beverly Hills, and we were starting to get
Hmm.
emails like, you know, um, at first it was like, we don't know what's happening, but we're just taking precautions. And then it got to the point where people were closing down. And
Mm.
then I also work for a mobile service, and I emailed her and I said, what are you? She's like, no one's calling. She's like, it feels like the end of the world. And I was like, please. say that
Mm.
because that's, like it's just so morbid. But it
Right.
did have that feeling. It did have the because we don't know, right? We've never
Right.
experienced anything like this ever.
Right. No.
Global. It's global. It's not just like a county, a town,
Right.
state even. It's global. Um,
Right.
yeah, so that eventually, luckily, I have some real, my best friend is an amazing person and just very positive, and
Yeah.
she really kind of helped keep my spirits high. And
Mm.
also just knowing too, like, so I just had come back from New Orleans and I was on a guided tour, kind of like they bussed us around town and took us through like the fun spots and the history. There's so much
Right.
culture and history. And then we got to the part where the levee broke when Katrina went down.
Mm.
And I mean, the detail and like the bus driver, he was actually a first responder in the
Mm.
chaos, and so he gave. I mean, he gave statistic stat history, but he also gave his own personal experience. So
Right.
it was just really interesting that such devastation and destruction that they had to go through. But as we're like driving along and he's telling us all this like insanity of what happened, there's all these
Right.
beautiful homes. There was children playing in the front lawns. There's green grass. There's gardens. And so as this pandemic is happening, that kind of made me think, well, you know what? We'll get through this too. I mean, it's totally a
Mm.
different type of destruction and devastation, but
Yeah.
life always finds a way. And that then had brought me to my teacher. I took an herbal class about plant medicine, and
Mm.
we came to have a week. It's like once a weekend, and we would have a set of herbs that we would kind of work with all weekend. And she came across this plant called comfrey. And this plant, she had said, like you could have the most destructive fire that burns everything completely to the ground. But this plant will always be the first plant to pop up, comfrey. And
Huh.
she says you can break roots off, like just take a little bit of root and just plant it wherever and it will just grow. And if you think you've weeded it out, think again because life will keep going. Life will always find a way somehow, some way.
Right.
And so that's really kind of what kept me on the more positive side of things. And, like I try to consider myself more of a healthy person and, I try to eat healthy and I take a lot of herbs and stuff like that. So
Mm.
I think that's really kind of helped me maintain a healthy mindset amongst all of it. I mean, I do have my,
Right.
days where I'm like, wow, this, you feel it. That was kind of like my experience of when this all first started happening. But what about you, Antonio? Where was your head and what were you doing? And
Ah, well, a lot like you, I do follow, I have trusted news sources that I go to for my news on a daily
Mhm.
basis. I really don't get it from TV as much. I get it from like the LA Times and the Associated Press news I follow on Twitter. So, like you, I'd been hearing over the past months how there was something going on in China and these cases. And just like you, I was like, okay, well, this happens every so often, either there or another country. But what really caught my attention was when I think it's called the Wuhan province. They announced like the whole, however millions of people was shut down, that no one could enter or leave. They were quarantining that area. And that kind of reminded me of one of those Hollywood movies where a whole town is quarantined because there's zombies or something there, and the government just locks everything down. Um, but like you, I was still like, oh well, nothing's going to happen here. Um, and so in the following weeks, the first case in New York, and then it gets to, I think, Oregon or Washington, which is now on the West Coast. And I was like, oh wow, well now it's on the West Coast. Okay, moving on. But it started spreading New York and more cases in Oregon. And, part of that time, well, I had been on workers' comp leave for over a year because I injured my knee, a torn meniscus doing a termite inspection. So it was that, it was a Thursday where I was getting released. I actually went to the specialist. It was going to be my last visit. I anticipated, and released me back to work full time. And as I'm driving home, I'm listening to NPR on the radio, and they broke the news. This just in, I can't remember if it was the mayor or the governor. I think it was the mayor of LA who announced that effective the next day, Friday, only essential businesses would be allowed to open. Everyone else was required to stay home. And my first thought was, I did have a little bit of panic. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? As it was, when you get workers' comp, I found out you get a third of what your average take home was for the previous 2 years. So I was already kind of hurting in my what I was taking home. And now I was possibly going to be unemployed because I didn't think termite and pest control would be an essential business. So I spoke to the my manager, and I said, "So I just heard the news, and I guess they had heard it too." And they said, "Okay, well, we'll be in touch." And they called me back the next day, but they weren't panicked for some reason. They didn't seem panicked about this. And sure enough, I started work on Monday. Was my first day back, and that was the first official. Well, Friday was the first official day of the lockdown, but Monday it was, business as usual for us. And so I'm still a little concerned of if I was safe or not, or if I was
Right.
okay. Um, but it wasn't until I mean, it took several weeks and until I actually saw a formal list from LA County that actually listed all of the businesses that were essential that I kind of sighed a breath of relief, like, okay, I can still work. Um, but now, it's been, gosh, that was March 17th,
Mhm.
I believe. So it's going on 2 months. But we're seeing the effects of it. Just like people weren't calling for massages. Here, as a termite inspector, people really aren't calling for preventative inspections. Um, Late winter was a type of termite, subterranean termites, where they do fly out, but unless they were flying into people's homes, we didn't get calls. So, there is concern from the company. We're seeing how it's going to play out for them. They've held off on laying off people, but they've also held off on hiring. There are some positions that are left unfilled throughout the company here in California. Everyone else is just picking up the slack cheerfully. Everyone's still glad to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
working. Um, but that's what went through my mind initially was, oh my gosh, I went from at least getting something of a paycheck to unemployed to, it's just been day by day. And like, yeah, I try to stay positive. I do listen to the news, not to be panicked, but to stay informed, keep up with the updates. Like I believe it was for us in Southern California, in LA, I think it's Friday when they started to open up a little bit more
Yes.
things. Yeah. Um, but it's been weird because as far as my shopping life, anything I need, I've still been able to get. Coming back from not having worked for a year, I needed to buy some work boots. And actually I went to Kohl's and bought some, and it was that Thursday. And I read on Twitter that Kohl's had announced they were going to close all that stores, and that Thursday was going to be the last day. So after the specialist appointment, I rushed over to Kohl's. I'm like, okay, I got to get
In
this
the nick
before,
of time.
because I didn't. Yes, yes, and you you didn't know what was the way it was being spoken. You figured all retail was going to be shut down.
Right.
And so I rushed over there, and Kohl's was empty. So, and I got the last pair of working boots that were there in my size that weren't fancy, just work boots. Um, and the lady that helped me, she had a mask on, and this was before it was recommended. In fact, I think at the time the Center for Disease Control was stating, number one, don't get the medical masks because first responders, doctors and nurses, they need
Right.
those, and that even if you wore a cloth face mask, that wouldn't help you.
Right. Hmm.
But you know, so this lady had one, and I was like, okay, cool, she has one. But now the shopping experience, Best Buy, I don't, well, they closed the store for you to walk in, but they've been doing curbside service. Because I bought an adapter for this podcast, and I was able to pick it up. Um, Grocery shopping, has been still available, though it's been
Right.
modified.
Yes.
Um, Although, when this first happened, I was like, oh, no problem. I'll just order online, Ralph's, get it delivered or pick up. But oh my God, you couldn't do that. And that's also when I started to get a little panicked because, I went to order online. I've done it before for pickup, no dates
Right.
available. Um, Went to order for delivery, and it sucks because they let you, order everything first, and then you get to the end to checkout, and there's no dates available for delivery. I'm like, oh my gosh! I'm like, why didn't they tell you up
Exactly.
front?
That happened to me too.
We're like, why do you do this? And I don't know if they were overwhelmed, which is I'm guessing probably happened. Just so many people wanting to switch to
Right.
that, and so I just reverted to showing up like at 7:30 because I knew 7:30 to 8 here locally was supposed to be for people 65 or older to
In the
shop
AM,
first,
right?
and
AM.
then
Yeah.
yes, in the morning, yes, exactly, and then 8 a.m. and on was for everyone else. Kids start going in, and it was supposed to make it a little bit safer for our seniors. And I would show up at 7:30 just to start getting in line because I had driven by markets, and I saw these long lines, and I'm not a shopper. I hate shopping because of lines, so I avoid places. And here I am Sunday morning, 7:30, lined up to go into the grocery store. And so that's been my experience. That was the beginning, and like you, it's I'm trying to keep positive. And it is a little challenging because you do hear the unemployment numbers going on. Um, and but just trying to be positive. And our mayor in LA, who is starting to open up things slowly, he's been giving good advice in his daily briefings. He starts off by saying, okay, as we open up, buy locally. A lot of corporations have been open and helping us out, but if you can, shop locally, buy locally, mom and pops. Let's try and help
Mhm.
out the Angelinos to get back on their feet as well. So that's where I've been, and like you, just trying to keep a positive
Yes,
outlook.
I think that's all you can do. And just from my knowledge from being, I like to consider myself a healer, and I do a great deal of, research. I mean, I'm a massage therapist, and then, taking the herbal class and stuff, I do try to um, see what I can do. It's for my own health. It's for me, but also to share
Yeah.
with others. And when you are not keeping yourself positive, you're lowering your immune system. I know it's hard to do sometimes. Like, I mean, there's
Mm,
just your environment can affect you, right? It happens, and
yeah.
people, and that's, like I remember, like, just like when my supervisor said, she's like, it feels like the end of the world. And you could feel that. Like, people were so scared and panicky, and you could feel it walking next to
Yeah.
people, even though they weren't walking so close. Like, everyone's looking sketchy at everybody and kind of freaking out, like, who has it? Oh, and then she's kind of like, wow. Well, I want to make sure I have a strong, solid immune system. So I'm doing my
Yeah.
best to make sure I am in a more positive mode. And I mean, that's why I like still have gone out and, try to get walks in. But I do it. See, I wake up like at 6 o'clock in the morning, thanks to my fuzzy furry alarm clock, and get a walk and get
Mm,
some sunshine,
yeah.
vitamin D, whatever we can do to kind of
Yeah.
keep that. And, that's why I'm so surprised, with the healthcare system, they're really overworking these people and they're not getting their sleep,
Yeah.
they're stressed. And so that's lowering their immune system. So my heart goes out to those people that are working so hard and overtime and beyond. And that's really putting themselves to me at risk because of their own immune system to combat what's going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioning that reminds me of, thankfully, I have heard some positive things in the news. Like I think it was in New York. I can't remember if it was like a five-star luxury hotel. I want to say the Four Seasons or another big hotel there decided to start allowing nurses and doctors to stay at their hotel to kind of recharge and get a break before going back. Here in the LA area, um, I know there was someone that took it upon themselves to start. I don't know if it's a GoFundMe, but they raised money to buy food to start feeding. I think it was Mount
Mhm.
Sinai Hospital to start feeding the doctors and nurses and the staff that work there doing, cleanup, sanitation, getting them these great meals. I don't know how long they were able to do that for, but I
Mhm.
thought, wow, that's awesome. Some celebrities, have been stepping up. Friday, when I was getting home, I was listening to the mayor's briefing, and he mentioned the Jonas Brothers and their families donated five hundred
Wow.
thousand dollars of their money towards this mayor's food program to help people that maybe aren't working and are having a tough time finding food. So that really helps to be positive that people who can are stepping up. I think earlier in the week, I heard Rihanna and someone else donated I want to say $800,000, a large sum of money to help house people of suffering from
Right. I
like
think
domestic
too
violence.
that
It's
Ken
mhm.
are giving, and that's what's kind of nice that amongst all this craze that people are, I think, becoming more in touch with being a human again. And I will
Yeah,
say that so I work for two different hotels. One of them sent out an email. This was in March that they were still open. They weren't, the restaurant wasn't open, and of course, like the spa wasn't open, but they were providing meals. There was one day that they were providing meals for all the first responders. And so what they would do is they would drive up through valet,
wow,
and they could pick up a meal. Like they would bring out a meal, and of course they're wearing gloves and masks and everything if they wanted to provide a meal. And then
yeah,
they, like a few weeks later, they did it for the employees. And I know that both the hotels that I work for, there was a day that each one of the hotels had provided a meal for the employees. And it wasn't just like one meal, it was actually a lot of food. Like I actually still have some rice and
wow.
beans that they gave. And I was like, wow, that is so nice. And to have that support because people are really like, who knows? Like this has really affected people financially and then just the spirit of
Yes,
human being. And so I've thought it was really nice that people are really stepping up and just being mindful and caring for the people that are around them. They're freaked out, but actually, I have another coworker who has retired and he lives like 2 blocks down the street from me. And we've actually, there was a few times where I like made dinner and shared it with him, because he's by himself. He's 68 years old. And,
Mm.
like I just being alone, this whole time. Whereas I probably wouldn't have done that before. So I'm a better cat mom unless I have cats. Like, what? We can have dinner whenever we ask for it now instead of waiting.
Right.
So I was in Venice on Friday. Just I needed it, like I'm starting to get a little stir crazy. And so instead of, I know we're not like we weren't allowed out. Well, Friday was the first day things were kind of opening up. I was like, all right, I need some ocean air. I decided, I don't know, I had to get out and drive. I actually drove up to Oxnard, and it was really beautiful. And then I think up towards Ventura County, they were starting to open up a little bit because there were quite bit of people out, and they
Oh,
weren't necessarily
yeah,
like in the sand or anything, but they were parked and they were like hanging out on
yeah.
their car. And I was like, that's a nice idea. You weren't seeing it towards like Malibu, but more towards Ventura County, they were out. And
Right.
so that
Okay.
was nice. But then on Friday, it was a madhouse. I was stuck in traffic. Now I feel like I'm back in LA. People were all over,
Right.
and nothing was open though, but people were out.
Right
People were
by
actually
it.
physically out and about walking around though, like a lot of people. And that's what kind of
Mm,
threw me
okay.
off. I'm like, wow, okay. I was dodging people and cars once again. So I'm like, all right. I feel
Right.
like life is happening again.
Good. Let's take a break. Okay, so we're going to take a break
Great.
and then we'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, sounds good. See you soon. And hello, everyone. And we are back. We took just a short little break and now we're ready to get started here. In this segment, we're going to try something we've named I Never Would Have Guessed. Because, again, discussing how we both observed the pandemic in its beginnings worldwide to where we are now. We have talked a little bit about how just things that have happened that we're seeing now and that we have seen in the past just have kind of blown our minds or surprised us. So I figure we'd go ahead and share that with each other of what, you know, we never would have guessed, or, another way to put it, maybe who'd have thunk. So I'll go ahead and start what I have here, Sonia. Um, Now, one of the things, of course, people are getting creative with their business. If they have one, or if they're out of work, and if people have turned to Uber and Lyft, although that was kind of iffy in the beginning. Um, but going to work, like just the block that our pest control office is on, there's a corner. It's got 4 gas stations, and I don't think I've seen that very often in LA. But there's one on each corner,
Ooh.
and yeah, it's crazy with traffic because of that. These are like cheap gas. So you've got United Oil, Shell, which is the exception. But like over a month ago, about a month ago, I saw people like on each corner with a cardboard sign selling masks for $5. So I was like, wow, okay. And they were kind of doing light business, but I'm like, hey, good for them. They're trying to do what they can to stay afloat. A lot of people are.
Hmm.
But what really caught my attention, and I don't know if you've read this, this happened in Oregon. Again, one of the first places to start closing businesses down before us in LA. But a stripper club, and I read this in Rolling Stone magazine back in the end of March, a strip club called Lucky Devil Lounge, which of course, there can be contact um, with a stripper if you go there. But they had to shut down. So I guess the
Oh, no.
owner, yeah, the owner and the dancers decided to, try and do something to stay afloat, especially from what I understand, a lot of these dancers are independent contractors.
Wow.
So they came up with a delivery service. So this restaurant would sell, they sell food, I guess, or snacks. Um, and what they would do is you call them, you order some food, and two dancers would come to your home to deliver it.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Now, have you ever ordered from any of these food delivery services like Grubhub or DoorDash or anything?
Yes, I have. I
Okay.
have.
And there's usually like some sort of a delivery fee sometimes.
Yes.
Right. And I've seen that. It ranges anywhere from like zero because they're new or they want to promote the restaurant
Hmm.
to like $3, $4, depending on the distance. Well, the strip club is delivering the food. So you have to pay for the food plus the delivery fee of $30.
Oh, that's not bad though.
Yeah.
I mean, for a stripper,
Right. Right.
like that
Exactly.
makes sense. I was thinking like it's gonna be crazy, like $100.
Right. Well,
But
apparently, right. Well, I'm glad you're you're looking at the positive side of that. And from what I was reading in the article, it's half of it goes to the dancers and half goes to the restaurant or the strip club. And they call this a Boober Eats.
that is hilarious.
And this was in the Rolling Stones, and this I read about
Wow.
it about a month ago. So for our podcast, I decided to follow up and actually look to see if anyone in LA was copying that, just for research purposes strictly.
Hmm.
And they've expanded. They've decided to do something else.
Oh boy.
Now, I mean, gosh, the entrepreneurship here is amazing. What Lucky Devil Lounge is now doing here in Oregon is now you can come and pick up your food. Of course, you still can't go in the restaurant or dine in, but they've set up these big tents, these big tarps that you can drive through, pick up your food, and get a show from a dancer while you're in your vehicle.
That's kind of cool though, I will say. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, because I was reading in the article and they have a photo of two dancers, I guess, going on, to deliver it. That originally they would, they wore sweaters and then they would take the sweaters off and their words, jiggle for, the client. Um, but that the owners and dancers thought better of it and said, we probably shouldn't be sending two dancers to strangers' homes. So
Yeah.
so they modified it where they wore pasties and security guy accompanies them. But with this, now you stay in your car and it's $10 again, plus the cost of the food, plus $10 for each additional person in the car.
Wow.
And they call this service Food to Go Go.
Oh, I love the names. I love the names.
I did
That's
too.
fun. That's
Yeah,
fun.
I'm just impressed with the entrepreneurship in this time. Because again, so there are some people that are out of work, and we're all hoping it's temporary. That once this starts to open back up, you can go back to your existing company. But these, their ingenuity, I thought, wow, that's really clever. That the last one really made me laugh when I saw what they were doing and the name Food to Go Go.
Yes, I like that too.
I
I
thought that
think
was clever.
it's super creative.
Yeah, so that is definitely something I never would have guessed, but I love it.
But you have to think like they've been fighting, the system for how long, that industry,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
so they've had to be clever on all levels and they are still afloat.
Yeah.
I would say, so I have a friend who happens, I don't know, he's he is out of work for the time being and
Yeah.
he is actually um he started managing a porn star
Uh-huh.
and he said they had to get really creative because right now that industry is shut down.
Right.
So they had to get creative on how to make money. And I was like, wow. And he just, they're actually using like Zoom and stuff like that to make the videos. And I was like, well, you know what? Good for them. They're being creative and, they're abiding the law. I just thought it was so bizarre to like hear that story. I was like, wow, okay. That is, good for them.
I never would have guessed. I think for the most part in LA, we've been spared price gouging. Um, and you know what? You hear about it happening, more on the East Coast, especially after a major natural disaster like, hurricane or tornadoes. Um, like, you spoke about Katrina earlier, and I think I also remember that maybe they were doing news stories or shortly after that, that men were selling or were offering gas, I think on Craigslist in exchange for sex.
Oh my
Um,
God, of course.
right. So, yeah. So
Sex,
we've
drugs,
had,
and rock and roll, man.
and,
Freaking
and I,
sanitizer these days.
right. Yeah. And that stood out because again, we really haven't had, I think for the most part, our natural disasters tend to be earthquakes or the exception. I think last year we had that major fire that
Right.
destroyed an entire community,
Yes.
um,
Hmm.
which was terrible, but you still don't tend to hear about price gouging. But, it finally has started to hit us. But what surprised me, like you said, is where the price gouging was, because it wasn't in gas. You got nowhere to go. In fact, that United Oil regular gas was selling for 217.
Right. It's been cheaper.
Yes, but what surprised me was number one, something I never would have guessed was that people would hoard toilet paper and paper towels to the point that we'd run out. I remember going to Target, all the shelves empty, going to CVS, all the shelves empty, and really starting to get worried, like, okay, I'm almost out of toilet paper. What am I going to do? And finally found some, but I'm cleaning more, so okay, I need paper towels. And I went online, and on eBay I found a 6 pack of Bounty paper towels, which I think now normally go like $10,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit less if you get them on sale.
Right.
But this person on eBay was selling this 6 pack of Bounty paper towels for $75.
And I bet there was people that would pay for it too. Oh
Right.
my gosh.
Yes, because I hadn't paid attention to this before because I do buy stuff on eBay, but there was like to the right under the seller's info, I think it said something like six sold already.
Oh wow.
And I was like, what?
No.
But that blew my mind. Something I just never would have guessed. And I think part of it is, again, we really don't deal with price gouging here in LA, but I was like, are you for real? $75 for a 6 pack of paper towels? That just that just seemed
Wow.
insane. And like you said, there are some people that maybe that can't afford it and were just that desperate, because at that point, you hear that these shortages are everywhere in LA County.
Right. Well, not just LA, it started to be like everywhere.
Right,
Where was
right.
it? I actually, to play off of that, I have two things. There was like that young kid that this was more like hand sanitizer. I think he had bought up like all the hand sanitizer and was trying to sell it.
Right. I
And then
remember
he ended
that.
up
Yeah.
going to like jail and he had to like give back like all this stuff. And I'm like, that's what you get for being such a jerk. Like, come on. Really? That's just wrong. Uh, and then I saw another article. So this was kind of funny. So I think this was North Carolina. Police pulled over a truck and they seized 18,000 pounds of toilet paper. And I'm like, there goes the cocaine industry. It's toilet paper now. Toilet paper is gangster now.
That I did not read about.
Yeah. If you Google it, it'll pop up.
Wow, that's crazy. Though, like Sundays, I've been going to shop on Sundays, and I can tell you, at least at my local Ralph's, I mean, they're for the most part stocked up. There was paper towels, toilet paper. So, I mean, if there's any people that still hoarded that stuff and are trying to resell it, I think they're out of luck now.
Yeah, I think it's kind of back to getting to normal. I mean,
Right.
I do see at least show at least the Ralphs by my place. So for me, I buy in bulk normally when it comes to toilet paper and paper towels, and I do try
Yeah.
I've started doing more of like the recycled, just to kind of be more sustainable and
Right.
earth conscious of what I'm doing. But I buy in bulk. So when this all went down, I was, okay. I was fine. But
Right.
there was a moment where I was like, all right, time to figure out where I am going to get some because there's just none.
Wow.
My friend and I, we went hiking in the Palisades and we decided, I'm like, if you go to the rich areas, I'm sure they have it, you'll have it. And I think we went on a day where it was at a Ralph's and there was no line.
Hmm.
And it must have been like delivery day or something because we were fine. And I walked out with a pack of toilet paper and paper towels. And my friend looked at me like, oh my God. I'm like, you better go in. And so she went and got hers. And then we kind
Right.
of like sorted out, like, because she had her family and stuff and she was concerned for her mom. So I'm like, well, I
Right.
don't need the toilet paper. I'm good. So she gave me her paper towels and I gave her my I've been okay. And I guess I'll kind of go I never would have guessed. So I refuse to stand in line. I just won't do it.
Yeah.
So I've started shopping at a Lebanese market. And I've
Ah.
never stood in line there. I never had to stand in line. And they had toilet paper the entire time. And then
So
it's supporting the local community and keeping them open too, which is great.
really something I never would have guessed. And I guess because, just my mind doesn't go in that direction. But reading in the news that here in LA, another place that had long lines were local LA gun stores.
I've
That
heard
really
about
blew my mind.
we kind of talked about this a little bit the first phone call we had before this podcast
Yeah.
started. And so I had a conversation with a lady, and she said that her accountant or something, he had to miss their appointment because he was standing in line at the gun store. And he was afraid for his family. And I think it's, people were
Mm,
scared. You don't know what's going to happen if there's going to be
yeah.
riots. People are going to get, kind of freaked out and start breaking in homes. You just don't
Right.
know. Like it's causing a frenzy. And so I think
Yeah.
people wanted to make sure that they were able to protect their home. But to me, I was like an accountant that last minute needs to go get a gun with, and I'm like, he's the type of person that's probably going to shoot himself in the foot. I'm like, that's what worries me more. I'm like, you're having all these people that are freaked out, not mentally stable, obviously, and they're
Right.
running out for
Right.
guns. And you're like, do you really think you should be shooting a gun right now? That's what scares me.
I was wrong on a lot of things, that I was wrong that people would hoard, that there would be a rush on, not only toilet and paper towels, but also foods.
Right.
Because going through the supermarket my first visit, after standing in line was, pastas were almost gone, rice, I mean, just a lot of stuff was empty, and
Canned
the
goods.
meat section. Yeah, so I was starting to get a little bit worried, and you know, admittedly, out of all the things that I was wrong about, I did say, I was thinking to myself, well, there's no way the grocery stores will close, because if that were to happen, I did think that then it would be bedlam. I mean,
Right.
then you'd have riots and craziness, because where are you going to get food from?
Right. People are hungry. People get crazy when they're hungry. Hangry.
Yes.
Hangry.
Right.
You better give
So
me my cereal, man. My Captain Crunch. Now. That was kind of one of my never would have guessed too, is like seeing, like, I just remember walking into Sprouts and I was like, Oh my God. But I'm the type of I try my best to be gluten free.
Yeah.
And I'm a vegetable person. I do eat meat, but I'm a vegetable person. And I'm like, you have all this beautiful produce,
Yeah.
which is more valuable, I would think, for your immune system. So going back to health, and like if you really want to protect yourself, eat
Yeah.
your fruits and vegetables that are going to give you your vitamins and minerals that you need, that your body needs to build its immune system. And yet they're buying like canned goods and pastas. The chips were gone. I'm like, chips, snacks, my snacks? Really? And it was funny. I would see people looking at me in the store. They have all their items. I have like maybe three things of spinach. I mean, that's kind of what I
Right.
hoarded was like some spinach because I got on a, you know, spinach kick there for a minute. So I was like, wow, my stuff's all full of vegetables.
Were they okay in the produce department as far as having
Everything.
stock
They
and
have
variety?
everything stocked. That's what
Okay.
kind of made me wonder, like, that really is that American society mindset. It's like the
Right.
doomsday prepper, like it just it did make me think like that. And I never thought that that would have happened. Like, I've never seen anything like this. You hear about it,
Yeah.
from history, but to actually, because there's so many people and just, I think California thinks, or at least Los Angeles thinks it's a little bit more like of its own little world.
Oh,
And
we
so,
definitely are. That's for sure.
we have everything all the
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
And to see that here was kind of like a mind opener to me, for sure.
Well, yeah, and I think I did start to really get worried too, not only seeing actually for myself how the shortage of things were happening, but hearing stories from people. My sister mentioned because she has three kids, so she stopped going out at all.
Mm.
So her husband does the shopping, and they heard from their neighbor across the street who had gone to get water, like a big case of water, that on his way out, I don't remember if it was Costco or Target, that someone actually mugged him for the water. And I was like, what? And that
Mhm.
kind, and I was like, wow, never would have guessed people being mugged for water. But I guess that's what people were desperate for. Because remember, also, that just reminded me, water, cases of water was something that people were running out of at Costco. Initially, it was like water, toilet paper, and paper towels.
Forget drugs
Um,
and boob. It's water and toilet paper.
yeah, right, right. Yeah. And then hearing from other people that, oh, I went to the Ralphs and they're out of tomatoes and they're out of this. I was like, whoa, what?
Wow.
And I just started coming back to work, and so unfortunately being out of work for a year and being stationary, I did gain some weight. So I'm like, okay, I gotta, I like salads, let me make some salads. And so kind of being concerned now, gosh, will I be able to find lettuce, tomatoes? And I think that first week and a half was a little sketchy because you're not
Mhm.
seeing even produce in some places, but the CEOs of these supermarkets saying, hey, don't worry, we're constantly restocking. And I think it took about 2 weeks, but after the first 2 weeks I was okay, because actually seeing it for myself that these supermarkets were able to restock, I was like, okay, it's getting better, it's gonna be all right.
Yes, exactly. And then I did start seeing that they were putting limits.
Yes.
I think on eggs and meat right now, there's only a limit one. Like you can
Hmm.
buy, um, so sometimes I cook for my cats. So
Oh,
I know I'm such a, but so even for a single person, I do kind of buy more meat than probably, well, not a lot, but I do buy a good amount of meat. But it's because
yeah.
I have four cats, a lot of cats, a lot of meat. They eat meat. So,
Yes.
but it's not just one pack, but I will say I think it's one package of the same thing. Like you can buy like some chicken and some beef and some fish, like one pack of each, and you're okay. Or maybe when I've gone, I don't know, like I feel like I've picked up a couple different packages of things and I've been okay, but there are signs
Right.
saying please
Yeah.
limit one per household. And then now it's come down to where, they're also doing the same with the toilet paper and
Yeah.
paper towels and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, like what you said though, the first 2 weeks I think it was really that
Yeah.
crazy. Like I felt like I was walking with zombies almost, like because of just how like people were scared. They,
Hmm.
and then with the hoarding and everything. I mean, that's actually I did the when it first happened. I stood in line, not outside, but like in a grocery line.
Mm.
Like, oh wow, this is really strange. Like this just is crazy. And
Yeah.
that's when I felt bad for like the workers. And I'm like, wow, they're not
Right.
prepared for this, that's why I'm kind of glad it did level out a little bit. And I think people are starting to see more hope and stuff now.
Yeah, totally. And, something that you just kind of made me think of is something that not only I never could have guessed, I mean, just there's no way is because seeing how this virus, I think in the United States, we're still learning about it on our own, what it can
Hmm.
do. But, going into that gas station because I needed a receipt, the company truck, and it stood out because here at a lot of gas stations they have a food mart. You can go in and get water, snacks, things like that. Most of them, I think almost all of them have that now. But normally you walk in and it's just an open counter. Someone's back there with the register. But what stood out right away was that there had been erected a plastic like window like around, and I was like, whoa, what? And there was a little sign there that said, for the protection of our employees, we've erected this, you know, plastic screen to help keep them safe.
Yeah,
And
they have it in the grocery store now. They did that in the grocery store. I'm like,
yes,
oh, it's
uh-huh,
like
yeah.
bulletproof. I feel like, like, is it from the virus or
Yes.
is it from all the stupid people buying guns that don't know how to use them?
Right.
I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say stupid people, but all the people that don't know how to shoot guns getting guns.
Yeah. And that really just stood out because, we're not used to that.
Right.
And to know why it's up, I mean, I don't even have to ask what it was for. I just knew. And I was like, whoa, this is like the
Hmm.
next step. Okay, fine. I understand. And like you said, seeing that at the grocery store and they're not doing actually I saw that at a McDonald's, and I've avoided doing fast
Yeah.
food. Yeah, I've avoided doing fast food because again, I'm trying to get in better shape. And I went through the drive-through and they had the top half of the window where you normally get your food at, the top half of that window was blocked off with plastic, like a plastic window. And I was like, wow, okay.
Wow. That's
And I didn't even think about that. But, if it's going to help keep them safe, then hey, great.
exactly. You know?
Yeah. But it just tends to be
Mhm.
a little jarring when you're seeing these new things in place, like, whoa, okay, all right. And, it's crazy because automatically you know what it is. I don't even have to ask. It's just like, okay, COVID-19, I get it.
Right. Wow. Well, I never would have guessed that I would have to wear a mask to go get a cup of coffee, and also that Starbucks would not be open. Like
Oh,
there's a few stores, like if they have a drive-through, they're open, and if they're
yeah.
inside a grocery store, they're open, but like just a regular Starbucks, if there's no drive-through, it's not open. I was kind of like,
Really?
wow, I was surprised. Yes, because
Yeah.
actually, even like the one in Beverly Hills. So I was going to go pick up my food that the hotel was giving me. And I was a
Yeah.
little early. So I was like, well, I'll just go get a cup of coffee at Starbucks. And then I look over, I'm like, it's closed in Beverly Hills, of all places.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And then that's
Wow.
weird because there are some restaurants that will allow you to come
Yes.
in, order, and then stand
Yeah.
outside while they prepare the order, and then you
Right.
take it. So I was a
Right.
little surprised myself about that. And then on one of my excursions to get out of the house up to Malibu. I drove up to Malibu. There's a little like coffee mart place, and like you have to wear a cover now to go inside. And so I'm getting my coffee, and this lady was like just stared me down evilly, and I was like, I'm sorry. It was a customer, another customer. And I guess,
Okay.
like she kind of like went to go get some napkins, and I went over, like, we were still like, I guess maybe I try my best to keep 6 feet away, but I mean, it's a little difficult sometimes. And I just grabbed like a stir, and she gave me the dirtiest look. And I'm like, is it a coffee stir? And then this is another. So the day that, there was another day I went grocery shopping in the Palisades, and there was a couple carts kind of like, I guess more of like, it made it look like an obstacle course. And this woman just like bulldozed and pushed all the carts out of the way. Like she straight up hit like every single one of them, and just like everyone was like, "Are you serious, lady? Like if you would have waited 2 seconds." It's really causing people to act really crazy inside.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
very aggressive.
Yes. Just blows my mind. Oh, and then I guess like for me, it's been kind of nice since I'm not working. I never would have imagined that I get to be out. Like I will go outside for a walk, and
Yeah.
there's been a few days where I've done a sunrise and a sunset walk, and like quite like a couple days in a row. And that's never happened to me before, just because I always worked, and um
Right.
I'm actually taking this time, like I was on vacation, and then I feel like I've just been on an extended version of vacation. And it's been nice
Right.
because, I mean, never in my life would I have guessed I would be able to just, like not work for so long without having,
Right.
like without an injury of some sort, or like without being a low life,
Right.
Just like, oh wow. Never thought that would ever happen, like, and I'm not a housewife yet. So I have to, you know what? I've always been a person that can take a situation and make the best out of it, because it's like, are you a negative person, or are you a positive person? And being a negative person, I mean, don't get me wrong. I can be like I have my crazy days. I have my down low days and everything. I'm a
Yeah.
person, but
Yeah.
that's never got me anywhere. And I would prefer to be happy, and I like to laugh. That to me, I feel raises my vibration, my mindset, and I'd rather go through the day that way than not,
Yeah.
So I've had to look at it that way. I mean, I've gone probably a little crazy. I'm sure my neighbors, like, I'm singing to my cats a little bit more, and talking in weird voices to my cats a little bit more. Well, that's the thing. The neighbors are home now, so they can hear. They're like, the crazy cat lady really getting crazy in there with her.
Something that I never would have guessed when this started, and I didn't, is that I would be an essential worker.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and the first thing when they mentioned that term, because they did mention essential businesses, essential workers, um, the first thing was kind of creepy. It made me flashback to the movie Schindler's List,
Right. Hmm.
um, because there's a scene in there where they're sorting out, who's an essential worker and versus the intellectuals to, unfortunately, exterminate the intellectuals. And it was a little dark, but that was the first thing I thought of when it said essential worker. But then to me, essential worker, was the doctors and nurses and ambulance and staff. So in my mind, like everything was going to shut down except grocery stores.
Right.
Um, so it's been surprising to see the list, um, and also experience. personally what I consider an essential service. Um, I think some things medically essential, definitely hospitals and the first responders. Um, but, I haven't had a haircut since the end of February.
Wow. Right,
And,
right,
as a termite inspector, I have to go under the home. And so I've got a, like, sort of a hard hat.
right,
And that's getting uncomfortable and falling off. Same when I go in an attic.
right.
So from a practical point, yeah, I'm like, my barbershop's closed, um, which is kind of weird because I thought I read that grooming places like that would still be allowed, but how do they keep the 6 feet physical distance and cut your
Well,
hair?
that's what was when this first went down. Like, that's what massage therapists were saying. They're like, how am I supposed to stand 6 feet away when I'm touching their entire body and breathing in
Right,
their face? So that's
right,
kind of why got shut down pretty quickly. But it was, yeah, I mean, and I've seen
yes,
the people are protesting. They want their haircut.
yeah.
And then I just think too, like I just had this image because I have like this crazy long red hair and it's thick, curly, fluffy. And I hadn't had my hair cut in like 4 years. And I love hiking. And to me, I have to make sure I have my hair up because it's a bug trap. And that's when as you're like talking about your hair, I'm like, it's a bug trap, you know?
Well, see, the problem though is when I am under home, because sometimes, like 50-50, sometimes when you go under there, it's cobweb free, and sometimes it's like a horror movie down there, cobwebs everywhere.
Oh,
And so I'm not so much freaked out about spiders getting on me because I know for the most part, being in the pest business, you understand you're fine. But no matter what, knowing that it still bothers me, if you're down there and all of a sudden the cobweb brushes against your ear, it's you're down there and you don't, it's just that feeling. It's just that natural reflex where you like flinch and you get it off, like get it off. And now it's my hair doing that because
oh,
it's,
that's
it's
funny.
growing on the sides. Yeah, it's like rubbing against my
Like, is it
ear.
cobweb or is it my
And
hair?
right,
Hilarious.
right, that's exactly right. and and that's how I really first realized and thought about my barber. How I really was like, oh man, it's getting to the point where I'm gonna have to take scissors just at least over the
No, wait a
ear,
minute. I thought,
so that
wait, just to jump in. I thought the sales,
yeah.
remember that vacuum cleaner haircut thing? I thought I saw that actually that had come back to the market and sales had gone up. I swear, I think I saw an article.
I could see that. I think it was at the time it was someone was like that was called like the Flovey or
Yes,
something. The
yes, exactly.
well, they would have a customer in me because again, I'm okay with shaggy hair. I get it. I understand. It's for my protection and my barber. Hey, no problem. I can hold out, but only because again, I'm having to do the job. It's like I need to do something.
Wow.
So yeah. So again, seeing who is an essential worker and who isn't has been really eye opening. Because gardeners were allowed to
Hmm.
continue, and I was like, well, okay, I can kind of get that. Fine. They don't really interact with someone as long as they keep, they don't interact with their clients. Okay, fine. Um, but golf courses are opening up this weekend
Yes,
in LA.
yes. That's my neighbor was very excited because he was able to go golfing this weekend, and so he's like just ecstatic about it. And I thought, oh wow, that's amazing. And then I was excited. I'm a
Yes.
hiker, so I was like, wow, now I can go hiking again because when they first got shut down, I will say I did sneak on. I snuck on a trail, and my friend and I, we both went, but then we did have to turn
Mm.
around because there was a forest ranger. Like, oh shit, turn around. I'm like, well, we should have just kept going. I don't know, but because at one point, I guess there was the caution tape, and then the next time we went, it was gone. So we're like,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna try, and so we did. But then the ranger was on there, but he was busy digging little trenches so that the water, like when it would rain, the water would flow. So we're like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just in the grocery store and I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is kind of funny too. Like, I find myself smiling at people and I'm like, no one can see me smiling.
Right, right.
And like the security guard at the
Yeah,
grocery store, I'm like, I'm smiling, but you can't see. Like, sorry. And then I'm like, now I feel really,
right.
really
You're
weird because of
exactly.
he's probably like, why are her eyes looking really strange? Oh.
Yeah, you're
Mm.
exactly right. That's and I have kind of thought about that you really don't have a good idea of what someone looks like now because especially me when I go on a job, I've got my cloth face mask and I've got my baseball cap. So really it's like only the bridge of my nose and my
Right.
eyes that you see, my ears. And that kind of stood out too because I had done this inspection and it was a long one and it was one of those days where it was hot, so I'm sweating. So I'm out of the home, so I start taking everything off, the coveralls and the hat and the face mask. I figure, okay, I'm away from the customer, I'm in my truck bed,
Yeah.
let me breathe. And so I'm doing that and I'm cleaning up and all of a sudden I hear the customer, the lady, say, hey,
Oh
now I know
wow,
what you
that's
look
so
like.
funny. That is really funny.
And I'm like, yeah, that's right. And I'm like, yes, yes.
Yeah. So what is the facial recognition, like the government crime, the CCTV? Like I'm sure they're having like a day with this. How, you know, they're like all that work just out the door because now you can't see anyone's face.
And unfortunately, because I have to wear my cloth face mask again in the office and when I'm out with customers, well, not unfortunately, I mean, it's part of the safety guidelines, but unfortunately, really, I can't wear the cloth face mask if I'm doing an inspection really more than one day because
Right.
I get sweaty. I'm under a crawl space and, it should be dry down there. So the dust, a thin
Mm.
layer of dirt will get on me. So now my face mask, yeah, it can get sweaty and it's got some dirt on it.
Mm-mm.
And that's not very presentable.
It's like
So,
underwear. You're gonna have to have
I've
like
had,
one for
I've had
every
to
day
make
now. Your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
That's exactly right. I didn't think of it as underwear, but that's a great way to put it. And that's exactly right. I've had to make an investment in cloth face masks. I bought them out on Etsy, and
Mhm.
I was looking for
Nice.
local people, at least in California. Number one, so I can get them faster, and again to support these people that are now doing this. And you're exactly right. I need one for each day of the week,
Uh,
especially as we get into the summer months and we're going to come upon, yes, we're going to come upon the termites that do tend to come out in people's homes. We're going to get swamped with calls. And yeah, definitely it's going to
yeah,
be at least one a day that I'm going to need to have. So
just like
that's a great way
underwear.
to put it, just like underwear.
I have one more. I never thought I'd be afraid to cough without someone thinking I have the COVID. And even myself, like every time I get like a little bit of a tickle, because it also allergy season was pretty bad for me this year. So I'm like, oh my God, is it? Is it? Ah!
Well, Sonia, I
I
think
think it
that
went pretty
concludes our
well for
podcast. How do you think
episode
that
number
went?
one.
I think it went very well considering the
Right. And
technical
smooth
difficulties
after
we had in
that,
the
pretty
beginning.
much. So
So, anything you want to say to our
stay
potential
tuned. Who
podcast
knows
listeners
what
out
we're going to
there?
be talking about next?
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Love
Stay
it.
tuned and stay positive. Not COVID positive, just positive outlook. So, just clear that up there. Yes. All
Bye.
right, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.